All right, Shabbat Shalom, Hakim, Shabbat Shalom. First and foremost, I give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Makakwadash, that honors the apostles and elders, great millstone of teachings is truth. Citations to sincere Akim and Aqua that may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Bakwai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will, as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I just wanted to go through quick exhortation called healthy masculinity, right? So, I Googled it recently, and I was just scrolling through a couple of traits in regards to healthy masculinity, assertiveness, dominance, courage, confidence, leadership, so on and so forth. And, as I was going through it, earlier I had watched this video here. Let me just pull it up real quickly. I'm not going to play because I don't really want to, essentially kind of like get a strike or, get copyrighted or whatever, but what I'll do, I can also leave the lesson in the description below so you can watch it full in entirety just to get an understanding of what's going on. So I'm going to play a snapshot, right? So it's this guy on YouTube here. It's called The Truth Is, and the title of the video he has here is "This is why rappers are painting their nails and wearing purses." So, essentially what he's going through is these two different archetypes, right? And he notices, throughout the years, for example, and it's mostly our people that are, being portrayed here. Like, so you have, for example, this guy here.
Hip hop has changed.
So the guy you see on the screen here, he's a rapper named Lil Uzi Vert, right? And, he also compares him and another some rappers from like the 90s, 80s, Jay-Z, and like NWA and so on and so forth, right? So the one thing that is really stressing here is this over feminization of so-called black men, so Israelite men being portrayed on TV. And this is something that has been common now and that is been running rampant throughout the years. As the years go by, you realize a lot of our Israelite men have becoming a lot more essentially feminine. They're taking a lot more feminine traits. They're starting to wear purses, skirts, thongs, nail polish, and there's a strong push for this, for our men to be more feminine. And partly, I think one of the reasons they're doing this is to make, especially the Israelite men, like so-called black men, to be like least threatening, and also what it does without our people actually knowing is the fact that it makes them essentially transgress against their power. They're willing to do a lot of bizarre activities for money, as opposed to actually standing on principles, standing on virtue. Like I did a lesson recently called probity, which is having wholeness, proper constitution, essentially abiding by what Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai has instructed us as Israelite men, because that is, as a matter of fact, let me get that scripture, because it's funny, I was actually recently talking to a coworker, and we were talking about the purpose of life and all that, and he's one of those speckled bird Israelites, but a lot of our men are so lost and confused because they don't actually know their purpose at all. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verse 13, and it says, "Let us hear the conclusion," so this is King Solomon speaking, "of the whole matter. Fear the Most High Yahweh and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." Right? So this is the whole duty of you Israelite men, is to fear the Lord and keep his commandments. They don't actually, and our people don't do this. There's no reverence for the Heavenly Father, right? There's no character, there's no morals, virtue, conduct, amongst our people, right? A lot of our people are very engulfed in this idea that, this idea of, in the world they call it financial freedom. Starting up a business, having 6, 7, different eight streams of income, so to speak, so you don't have to clock into a 9 to 5, and so essentially they're trying to obtain a chunk piece of sovereignty, but our people don't have wisdom, right? And the scriptures talk about and says that what? Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. And with all that getting, get understanding. So, going back to the title of the lesson, the video here. So essentially, the video is discussing different, like, I want to say prototypes, the different prototypes of what a man should be. So in the first era, they discuss like, for example, the gangster rap era, where you had Ice Cube and NWA and Eazy-E, all these different, like Dr. Dre, they behaving in the thug like, gangster like character, right? That prototype, so to speak. And eventually you get to the 2000s, and then you get to like the 2010s, where you get all these rappers, they start coloring their hair, they start having nose rings, they start wearing crop tops, thongs, dresses. That's a huge thing that's been running rampant, with a lot of these Israelite men in Hollywood, right? Wearing like high heels. And the guy really does cover it. I'm not just going to play the video for the sake. I'm just kind of giving you like an abridged version of like what he's discussing, right? And Israelite men are not supposed to do this, right? So what I want to do as well, let's go to Deuteronomy. Okay, this is Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 5. And it says this: the woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment. For all that do so are an abomination unto the Lord Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai. Right? So these men that are and it's so funny, it's a lot of these men that are doing this, right? And they use Jake in the forefront to do these particular things, to essentially kind of steer the minds, and essentially they're using the music as well to do this. Like, Esau is a man who understands you Israelites. You Israelites don't understand who you are, right? And this is part of the reason you get devoured. Like Jeremiah says, we're sottish children, and sottish meaning stupid. And it's true. The Lord doesn't, the Lord is not harsh saying that, because it's true. Because here you are, you have apostles, elders, brothers on the highways and byways, actually trying to properly instruct you, at no cost, right? Not charging you for group therapy sessions and Hebrew names and so on and so forth. And a lot of our people, famous people I'm speaking of, know that they're Israelites, but coming from a vessel that looks essentially very modest, they don't actually essentially have respect onto what is being said, right? Paul says, I come to you essentially in, as a matter of fact, let me get it. Is it First Corinthians? I think it's First Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 1, and it says, and I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai. For I determined not to know anything among you, save Yahushai, Hamashiach, and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my speech was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in the demonstration of the Spirit and of the power, right? So, and that's kind of the spirit, the prophets come in. They don't come in essentially flashy garments. A lot of us have, ailments. A lot of us have I don't want to say deformities, but a lot of us have, essentially, we're not flashy men. Essentially, we're not out there wearing suits and ties and driving Rolls Royces and Lambos and so on and so forth. We come very lowly, just like Yahweh Shai came very lowly, right? When I think in St. John the 6th chapter, when he performed that miracle, I believe, and they wanted to make him king, he departed to himself in the mountains, right? It wasn't his time yet. We come very, very lowly, right? That's not essentially the spirit that we come in, but because we come in that spirit, Jake essentially tries to discredit the message, right? Rather than taking heed to the message. Further on, so just going back to the title of the lesson, that that essence of masculinity amongst our people is slowly being destroyed, and Esau is very, very cunning as he does this, right? When I show you, look at this. So here, if you can see, so this is the rapper Lil Uzi Vert. He has on this crop top, so to speak, and he has his hair is like all dyed red, and he has like if you play the video on his face, when you look at his face, he has not just a bunch of tattoos, oh Lord, but it has how do you call that stuff, like blush or something like that, like sprinkles, not sprinkles, I guess it's blush or something, like it looks like makeup, essentially kind of like makeup on his cheeks, right? It looks he looks more girly, right? And this is what Esau does to essentially destroy our men, right? Because essentially, as a matter of fact, let me get this precept. Hold on. This is what has happened to our men. Lamentations 4 verse 1, and it says, how is the gold become dim? How is the most fine gold changed? The stones of the sanctuary are poured out in the top of the street. Verse 2, the precious sons of Zion, comparable, to fine gold, how are they esteemed as earthen pitchers, right? So essentially what's being described here is these men, these Israelite men, they went from essentially a glory state, being essentially being described as fine gold, and now they're shifting into like these earthen like pitchers, regular pitchers. There's no value in that. There's no value in men like that, right? So you see the decline in the society, and Ezra talks about how the essentially, to roughly paraphrase, the things have become weaker through the ages, right? And this goes also into the mentality also, but you see the shift of what happens to the declining society, right? As a matter of fact, let me get this as well, describing the men. It says, Jeremiah 2 verse 21, yet I have planted thee a noble vine, holy, a right seed. How art then turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? Right? So this is how we become degenerates. Essentially, we become degenerates by essentially transgressing against our power and, building up essentially like sin upon sin upon sin, committing iniquity, right? And following essentially the ways of the heathen. Jeremiah says, don't learn the ways of the heathen. And one of the reasons, and the guy in the video goes through this as well, essentially these Israelites that are adopting this feminine, masculine, gender blending kind of outfit or look, it's because, it goes back to Baphomet. Because when you look at the statue of Baphomet, for example, it has, those characteristics of both male and female as well. Right, so this is the vibration that they put upon themselves, right, and it makes them into these degenerate plants of a strange vine. But when you read early in the verse, we're actually a noble and a right seed, because the Most High chose the nation of Israel, right, to be that royal people, right? And real people, it comes with a certain level of conduct, a certain level of uprightness, a certain level of virtue, morals, right? And Jake doesn't have a lot of these things today because they don't have that cornerstone. They don't have that fear of the Lord, right? So, let's go through it a little bit here. So you see different rappers.
You're officially
Drake
invited to the break.
You know, you see Drake, you know, for example, painting his nails, and you know, you know, they talk about I believe it was, what's that guy's name? Young Thug. He's very, very well known for wearing a lot of like dresses and so on and so forth. And you know, that's like, you can't have your children looking up to these people. And Jake doesn't understand and wake up to these things. It's not just about money, right? So let me read a quick excerpt here. Just bear with me. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, 2 Samuel chapter 17, verse 41, and it says, read it in NLT, so it says, Goliath walked out toward David with his shield and shield bearer ahead of him, sneering in contempt at this ruddy-faced boy. Speaking about David, am I a dog? He roared at David, that you come to me with a stick, and he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here, I'll give you your flesh to the birds and wild animals, Goliath yelled. David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai of heaven's armies and power of armies of Israel, whom you defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. And then I will give your dead bodies to your men, to the birds, and to the wild animals. And to the whole world will know that there is a power in Israel. And I read this because, you know, David essentially wasn't, you know, he didn't have the similar kind of stature in comparison to like Goliath, right? He wasn't, you know, I guess, how do you describe it? He wasn't, you know, as you know, like as tall, for example, as Goliath here. But, you know, one of the things I wanted you to keep in mind as well, going back to like healthy masculinity, because David, you know, essentially what he did was he boasted in the Lord, right? He didn't boast in his shield. Like that's the contrast you see with this character Goliath. You know, he's boasting in his weaponry, he's boasting in his shield, you know, his might. And the scriptures say, a man should not boast in his might, or a rich man shouldn't boast in his money, to roughly paraphrase, right? So David came in that spirit of boasting in Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and that produced assertiveness, if that's a word, you know, courage, you know, going through this particular situation. And these are the kinds of stories, you know, our young men, you know, our young boys, you know, should be knowing. You know, our young girls should be knowing about righteous women, for example, like Susanna or Judith, right? Or Abigail, you know, all these different examples here, right? But our people, they don't learn about Yahushai. They don't learn about, you know, King David or the righteous kings that have existed, you know, before their time, right? Because the things that are written for before our time are written for our learning, right? These are righteous examples, right, of what they did in these particular situations in moments of distress, right? So these are examples, going back to the title of the lesson, are examples of healthy masculinity, right? So I'm going to end it off here, but Lord's will is always, Yahweh Ratazah, Yahweh willing, that this lesson was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Till next time, I say, Shabbat Shalom.